Hello everyone, it's been a while since I last shared a video, and today I'm excited to share another sample instrument that I created. This instrument was also made with one of those animal sounds that I told you on my previous video. What I found the most interesting about all the samples that I had was when you open them in your DAW, you're able to see how rich these sounds are, how they fill up the frequency spectrum in ways that you were probably not imagining. And especially with the instrument that I'm about to show you, where I was most surprised was with the rhythm. While I was recording, I was obviously thinking, wow, what pitch is that? What could I do with this? Could I use it as a pad, as a lead instrument? And then when I put it into Pro Tools and I started playing around with the speed and checking the frequency spectrum, I actually realized that when you slowed it down, way down, there's actually some rhythm in there. When I make sample instruments, it's always these little surprises that make the journey so much more interesting, because I might have an original idea that I begin with, and then I have to even perhaps change the whole concept of an instrument depending on what I find. Sometimes the surprises can actually turn an instrument like 180 and then I have to take a completely different approach, or sometimes it actually makes it way easier because there's something in the sound source that I actually didn't know was there. I will quickly show what I went through with the original source, how I determined first the pitch, because obviously we want to make an instrument that's playable, but then how with this slowing down I stumbled upon what first was a challenge because I didn't know whether it would work, or perhaps it's not as versatile as I first intended it to be, but it's still very much playable, very useful. So now I'm going to show you more or less what I did with the sounds, how I went about cleaning the samples with Isotope RX6, and how I played around with some effects to add some layers. It's very likely that the interface you see right now will change a little bit from when I'm making these videos to when the instrument will be available on my website, but the content is not going to change, it'll just be the interface. Let's have a look at my Pro Tools session then. Hello everyone. So as I mentioned before, one of the most interesting things that happens when you're sampling is once you bring in your audio files into your DAW, in my case it's Pro Tools. Once you do that, you're able to see the sample in a lot more depth, and you can discover maybe some hidden gems that you weren't expecting. So in this case, I'm going to show you the recording I got with my Zoom H6. What I'll do first is I'm going to send that audio file to the RX6. So if you guys are familiar with the RX 5, 6, 7, or 8, the most recent, you will know exactly what you're looking at. If this is new to you and you don't really understand what you're looking at, the two most important things to keep in mind is what you see here in blue is the waveform, and what you see in yellow or orange, that's the frequency information. So if you go here in the bottom, you'll have all the low frequency information, and the higher up you go, obviously the higher it goes in frequency and in register. Now, you might recognize here, there's a little bit of pattern going on, which is what I was recording, what I was hoping to record. So I'll play it back. Now here we have a few things going on at once. Obviously, this is a very constant sound. What that means is that it won't be too complicated to get rid of everything else and just keep those little chirps, which is what we want. I'm not going to do a workflow of how I did that. I'll show you the end result. So here I isolated the chirps that I wanted to use, and this is before I did any processing. I was just selecting which section I wanted. I wanted to have a few of them to later make some round robins out of them. This is after I did a lot of noise reduction and also some normalizing. It sounds like this. As you can hear, there are a lot of background little elements that are still present over there. Perhaps that's going to offer something unique after I process it. That's quite a lot of round robins to have just in terms of programming, so I decided just to take 4. Then I took those 4 round robins, and what I did was I wanted to have 3 layers. I wanted to have one that would be as clean as possible, because obviously it's not a very clean sound. It's not an instrument sound anyways. Now the second layer that I wanted to create was a chorus, and the third was echoes. What I did for these 3 layers was to first run the 4 round robins through my Tascam Porta 03 Mac 2, because I wanted to add just a little bit of that old cassette sound. So what I did was I ran this original signal at half speed. The little artifacts behind the birds or around, like the pond and the leaves, obviously they also sound an octave lower, and they offer a lot of bizarre movement that I was very, very captivated by. Once I had that on the Porta 03, I brought it back to Pro Tools, and I came up with this 4 sounds. And what I was mentioning in the beginning as to how there's always surprises when you dive in a lot deeper into your samples, one thing that I didn't realize would happen was how this sound, well, which sounds like just one chirp, actually, when you slow it down, there's 2 notes there. You can barely notice the effects because the notes themselves are very, very short. After I had all of my signals ready, I had 4 round robins of each layer. I opened an instance of Kontakt. This is what it looks like right now, as I mentioned in the beginning. Perhaps this might change once it becomes available. What I did over here was to have 4 round robins of each. Very simple. Each of them going through their own individual bus. So the sliders over here, what they're doing is they're controlling the bus volume. That's what they're controlling. And without further ado, let's have a listen at what it sounds like. I'll play the original pitch. This is the original sound source. Now you can see that double note kind of sliding feel was a very odd surprise that most definitely not for every occasion. It has it has its own place, and I guess it's just up to us to find it. If you go down the register, it has a heavy drop kind of feel since it's descending. Very, very different from what it sounds up there. What I did to make it a little bit more playable was the release time is actually very fast. So if you play the notes quite fast, it becomes more of a lead synth sound, which is why I called it Beak Lead. Played fast like this, it becomes way more useful. Now let's listen to what the chorus sound. First the original pitch that I showed you before. And now if we go down. So here is where the chorus effect really comes to shine, because there's lots of things hidden over there. It might not sound like the most versatile instrument, but it most definitely has its own place. It's quite unique in a way that I wasn't anticipating, and I'm sure that everyone out there will find a particular way to use it. Let's go down the register and see what that sounds like. Obviously, the lower you go, the sample is going to be stretched way more, so there's a lot more little artifacts that are going to be apparent. And finally, let's try out the echoes. The pitch becomes a little bit more irrelevant here. If I go down the keyboard, you can see that there's pitch there. There's pitch information if we go up. But what's way more interesting is what happens with the speed of the echoes. So it kind of becomes its own instrument because you can record some sort of hi-hat section with this and then play around with that, create a beat of its own. As with the rest of my instruments, all of the sliders are CC assignable. If you want to go a bit further with the instrument, you can always go and change some of the parameters yourself. Each of the layers has a different release and attack time. You can obviously go play around with that. And that's the Beak Lead in a nutshell. It's been a couple of days now, and as I warned you, I did in fact change the interface. It now looks like this. I took a bit of time to create some more engaging sliders, and for the cover I was a bit hesitant. I didn't know what to do, so late at night the other day I just decided to draw something, and that's what came out. Now another feature that I added is a little sequencer. Some months ago I stumbled upon Dave Hilowitz's tutorial on how to make an arpeggiator, and I decided to take this opportunity of the Beak Lead to implement it and see what happened. I won't go into too much detail, but you'll see that there's a button that turns the sequencer on and off, and you can draw your own sequence as you wish, and you can change between quarter notes, 8 notes, and 16th notes. While I was trying out the sequencer mode and all the 3 sliders, I put together this little tune that I'm about to play you. As always, thank you very much for watching. If you made it this far, I really appreciate you taking the time. If you're interested in the kind of instruments that I'm creating, please hit like and also subscribe to the channel. I have a lot more instruments coming your way, and I am very excited to share them with you. So please subscribe, it only takes 1 click and I would really appreciate that. Remember that you can go to my website in the link in the description below to download the Beak Lead today. The Beak Lead is going to be available for free on my website, although I'm not entirely sure how long I'm going to have it available there. So make sure to run to my website to download it today. Again, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Enjoy the music.